It's a memory that still sticks in my head, and it's quite vivid. It was the very day that I pulled up to the seminary and was preparing to move into my room. Now, certainly, it was daunting. It was something that was anxiety-inducing, not just looking at the grand and magnificent building that I was pulling up to, but it was the task that lay ahead. Because I was very well aware this wouldn't just be my home for just a short little while, and likely not just for 4 years, but in total 8 years to go through the entire program. Something that seemed almost impossible, very difficult at the very least. You can imagine my shock and how easy it seemed. That one day that seemed like it just kind of flew by, one day I found myself standing in the back of Old St. Vincent's Chapel of Ease in Cape Girardeau, getting ready to walk in to be ordained a priest. It wasn't my own strength that made it easy, or easier than it could have been. Rather, it was the grace of God. It was that gift of faith. That's what made it all work. And whenever it comes to living out our life of faith, likely we have many situations as well, where it seems like things are difficult, things are arduous, things seem almost impossible. But what do we do in the midst of those moments? And what about this gospel? Because this gospel, it seems like at the very beginning, we have the apostles' petition for an increase in faith. And it seems like Jesus gives this response that's rather mysterious and then even goes off on a tangent. It's something that seems unrelated. What is it saying? So the gospel we know at the very beginning, it begins with that petition, Lord, increase our faith. This in itself, not bad. Actually, a very good petition for each and every one of us. Lord, increase our faith. But then Jesus, he kind of stops, he thinks, and then he gives them this response. If you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you would say to that mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey you. Something extraordinary, something we don't experience on a daily basis, something that would not make sense. And yet the Lord says, if you have this little faith, that can be done. And then he goes on into this tangent, it seems. He starts to tell about a servant. And whenever that servant comes in, what would the master do? Would the master tell him, come and take place, and tell him, come and sit in your place at the table? Or would he rather not say, come and wait on me, put on your apron and give me food and drink, you may eat and drink when I am finished? The answer, it might seem harsh, but it's the reality that the master is going to ask to be waited on first. That is the will of the master, that is what he's going to want done. And then at the end, he asks this question, will he be grateful to the servant who did what the master requested? The answer again is kind of shocking. No, he wouldn't. Because that's what the servant's there for. That is what the servant is supposed to do. And so while there might be a small element of gratitude for him doing his job well, there's the expectation. That's what the servant is supposed to do. And then this very last line, we are unprofitable servants. We have done what we are obliged to do. We did the very thing we're supposed to do. And I was reading another translation, and it actually made this a little bit of a worse statement than is here in today's translation. It said, we are useless servants. We've done merely what we were supposed to. It's rather odd. But if we understand what the Lord is saying throughout the entirety of this gospel, it actually makes a little bit more sense. And what is he saying? To do all with humility. Because he doesn't want us getting this idea that we've done enough, that we've done more than the average. Maybe we've done kind of the status quo or maybe the bare minimum, and we kind of feel that's okay and we move on. And that's dangerous because we start looking for what's the absolute least I can do for the kingdom and kind of move on. The Lord should be grateful that I showed up to Mass today. The Lord should be enamored with me that I went to confession. Or those two nice things that I kind of held back and I bit my tongue, the Lord should be grateful for that as well. It's a really bad way to live out a life of faith, but it's one that can kind of creep into our hearts and our souls. And that's why the Lord is giving that encouragement to his disciples. Don't say, increase our faith because we've got a great amount of faith already. Say, increase our faith because we don't even have enough to move a mulberry tree. Not even a mustard seed, some seed that can get lost easily in the palm of our hand. He's saying, approach with humility. That's the first thing that we need to remember, my brothers and sisters. Whether it comes to what good we do in this life, as long as we're following God's will, we are unprofitable servants. Yes, that is a good thing, that we are serving the Lord our God. We need not be arrogant or full of ourselves. We can't have pride in what we do by following the will of God. That's what's expected. That's what we're supposed to do. And so we need to have an approach with humility so that we don't find ourselves arrogant or find ourselves saying we've done well enough, rather than asking a better question: what more can I do to serve my master and to serve my God? That's the better approach, and that's the humble one. So that's the first point. The second is that the petition of the apostles in itself is not bad. In fact, it's a prayer that we should utter each and every day. Increase our faith. Now, we know that faith has a couple of senses, because in just a few moments we will profess our faith. There's the Catholic faith. That's our religion. That's what we believe. But then there's more, because it gets us so far, and then there's that extra step. Do we believe that Jesus is present on the altar? Do we believe and have faith that the Lord hears our prayers? Do we have faith that He will do as He has promised? That's where the greater element of faith comes in, that the Lord is taking care of us, providing for us, and will respond to us. That's where He's challenging us and encouraging us. And that's where we need to have that prayer: increase our faith. We can't do it on our own. The Lord needs to grant us that grace and that aid so that we can have faith, and we can have that faith increased. And then the final thing for us to think about. It's an odd question, but it's a question worth thinking about. Where are your mulberry trees? Where are your mulberry trees? Now let me say that in a different way. Where are the burdens in your life that you cannot move on your own? Where are those broken relationships, those friendships that just don't seem to go anywhere? Where are those disappointments? Where are the struggles? Where are the things where there are challenges that are just too heavy to carry on your own? Maybe it's not necessarily going through 8 years of seminary, but each of us have our difficulties. Each of us have our challenges. Each of us have things given to us by God that are difficult to carry. We're not meant to carry them alone. And the Lord reminds us, if we have that gift of faith, we would say, be uprooted, be gone, be fixed, and be lighter. And those things would be happening if we had that gift of faith. So where are your mulberry trees? And are we willing to ask the Lord to move those things out of our life, or to carry them for us, or to help us through them? Because each of us have those mulberry trees, so to speak. Those difficulties, the areas in our life that are heavy, whether we pay attention to them or not. Are we going to have the boldness to ask the Lord to uproot them and plant them in the sea? Certainly, maybe we're not looking at 8 years of seminary. Maybe the difficulties don't seem quite that arduous or that heavy, but we each have burdens, and we each have areas where our faith can help carry us through. And that perhaps is the most important thing that Jesus is giving to us today, my brothers and sisters. That gift of faith, that He can increase it, and we can do great things if we live in that faith as well. May we truly pray to the Lord to increase our faith, so that those mulberry trees, those difficulties, the things that are difficult for us in this life might be uprooted and planted into the sea, that we might get through every difficulty through the gift of faith, and all will be done for us.